Who do you think you are? Do you ever ask yourself that? Do you worry that other people will think that of you? Your self-concept could be part of the reason that you aren't showing up for your business. Today, we're going to talk about how you can get past that. Welcome to Show Up and Be Seen. I'm Valerie McTavish, sharing insights and inspirations to help you get more visible so you can increase your impact and grow your business. Joining me on the show today is Cori Willis. She is a business strategist and coach. She's a former law professor and she is a published author, and she is willing to share with us her own struggle with visibility and how she gets past it. And she's got some pretty awesome tips. Thank you for being here with us, Cori. Really appreciate it.
Hi, Valerie. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about the struggle that you personally dealt with in terms of getting on camera, in terms of showing up for your business and just being out there and visible with things that are really personal and passionate to you. Your business is built on your personal passion. So why was it so hard to put yourself out there?
So there were a few reasons, but one of the big ones was that going on video, I thought at the time, was such a production. I had to do hair, I had to do makeup, I had to do lighting, I had to have the right camera. And it would take me, an hour and a half to set up to do a 5 or 10 minute video. And it just the economics didn't seem worth it to me.
So how did you get past that? Because you're doing it now. So how did you get past it?
So I created for myself a series of questions that I would ask myself. And then I started doing what I call walk-in talks, right? Where I would just turn on the camera while I'm walking through the neighborhood. And I was showing up for my audience, but it took the production piece out of it. And then there were sort of a series of questions, like a 4-step process that I would put myself through to deal with all the little fears and insecurities and things that sort of came along with not wanting to do the production.
I love that you just started these walk and talks, and I want to get to your questions that you ask yourself in a second, but I want to stop here for a second because how much freedom did you feel when you realized I can just go outside, be myself, talk to the camera, share my message, and a story doesn't have to be hard?
Oh, it was night and day. First of all, the walk-in talks, they get the most views. I don't know why, but when people see you outside going about your life, people are just more interested in it. So they would get lots and lots of views. The other thing that they allowed me to do is because the setup wasn't so onerous, it allowed me to just turn on the camera and talk about one little point, right? Like one discrete point that I wanted to make, and then turn the camera off. I didn't have to do any scripting. I didn't have to try to tackle 5 things at once to sort of make the hour and a half setup worthwhile. I could just talk about one thing that was on my mind, and it was just great. And I also found that the audience has been very forgiving of horns honking, the wind blowing, the trees rustling. So it's been great. And I feel so much more authentic, and my audience feels it too. I once surveyed my audience and they said they knew what I did. They understood what I sold. But I asked the question, how well do you think you know Cori? And out of 10, it was like a 2. Once I started doing the walk-in talks, those numbers went up.
Yeah. And this is the key. This is what I always talk about when I talk about video strategy. It's that video marketing is about building relationships. And so what you've done with your walk and talks is you've basically said, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's talk, right? Let's just have a conversation the way we would have a conversation if you were right here with me and we're going to go around the block, right? You've taken the sheen off. You've taken all of the pomp and circumstance out of it. And you've just shown up, which is so amazing. And I think that's such a great little hack for anyone who is feeling overwhelmed by the tech, overwhelmed by the process, to just say, you know what, how simple could it be? I love that.
Yeah. And one other thing, let me add one other thing. Because I'm a professor, because I can come across as very sort of academic sometimes, and because I'm used to standing in front of the room, and it shows a whole different side of me, right? It shows that I have a sense of humor. Like one time I actually tripped, and it takes me out of that sort of staid academic persona that I can have that comes so naturally to me. So that's been another benefit.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. So even when you are taking away all of the sort of other barriers of the tech that's necessary and the setup and the scripting and all of that, and you're doing your walk and talk, do you ever find yourself still sort of thinking, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm not feeling it today? And if you do, what are those questions that you ask yourself?
Okay, so the main question is why. So the first thing I ask myself is, what is the minimum viable show up? Like, what is the minimum that I need to show up? And that takes me out of, in my mind, making it seem like it has to be something so much bigger, that I have to do it the way the gurus do it, right? Sometimes we compare ourselves with our cell phone or our computer camera. We compare ourselves to people who have like full camera crews behind them and professional lighting. And there are some gurus that we all follow and relate to who have massive, massive filming budgets and crews and all this kind of stuff. So the first thing I do is I say, what's the minimum viable show up? The second thing I do is I think of people that I love and follow who just turn on the camera. No makeup, no fancy hair, no setting. And I watch them, I love them, and I follow them. I don't judge them. So why do I think everybody's judging me? Right? That's a huge one. I literally name people that I know and respect and love and follow who just turn on the camera. And if they can do it, then I can do it too. And then I have some others. So I don't know if you want to hear some more things that I ask myself.
Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm loving this. And it is so true. I mean, sometimes when we just think about those people who inspire us, that's just that last little push that we need to go ahead and do it, to just show up. So I love it. Now, I know that one of the steps and one of the things that you ask yourself is around this concept of self-concept. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have done as a coach for the last 5 or 6 years is I've helped people find their God-given gifts and then build their businesses around their gifts. And over the years of working with people, I noticed two things. The first one is that your gifts have to align with your temperament. Right? Which is a part of the production thing. If you don't have the temperament to put on a big production every time you want to say something, that's not the right business model strategy for you. But the second thing is that I realize that oftentimes the biggest obstacle for people is their self-concept. And we can never outperform our self-concept, right? And our self-concept affects every aspect of our lives. How we show up, how successful we are in business, how big we play in life. It affects our finances. It affects our health. It affects our relationships. And it definitely affects our willingness to be visible, right? Sometimes the vision or the dream that you have for yourself is bigger than your self-concept will allow. So the question becomes, do you minimize the dream or do you expand your self-concept? And so what I'm doing now with people is really focusing on this idea of self-concept, right? Expand it, because the dream you've got, God put that on your heart and mind. He could have given that dream to anybody, but he didn't. He gave it to you. So if your self-concept is not big enough for it, don't argue with God about the dream. Work on your own self-concept. And so I've developed some strategies to help people really look at and expand their self-concept to a point where it can house what they're trying to do. And part of what they're trying to do is show up and be seen, right? Show up and serve an audience. So it to me, it's fundamental.
I love this. And I know that you've got a new resource, and I'm excited that we're going to have a link to that in the description. So anyone who's interested in exploring self-concept a little bit more, Cori's got something called Self-Concept RX. But before we leave this idea of self-concept, just in case there's anyone who doesn't quite get what you mean by self-concept, how do you explain what that is?
Okay. Your self-concept is basically how you feel about yourself, what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the world, and what you believe about yourself relative to the world. It informs what you think is possible for you, what you think is available for you, how big you can play in the arenas of your choosing. It really is. It's your self-concept. It's the concept that you have of yourself relative to what's out there. And the bigger it is, the bigger the universe of options is for you.
Right. And a lot of people think that they can't shift their self-perception, but they can, because they created it.
Yeah. So one of the first places that we start, first of all, is accepting this truth that whatever your life looks like, it is a reflection of your self-concept. And sometimes our self-concept in certain areas is really strong and healthy. And then in other areas, it's not so strong and healthy. But you can really look at your life, and you can't always look at somebody else's life and know their self-concept. But you can look at your life and see what your self-concept is. So the first thing is recognizing that your self-concept is what's created everything. The second thing is to look at strategies to improve it and to assess where it came from. Because sometimes our self-concept has been dictated to us and we just didn't challenge it, right? So long before we were even aware of ourselves, other people, family, teachers, they were all forming our self-concept. And to a large extent, sometimes we don't argue. We don't push back. We don't ask, is that true? So a big question in the work that I'm doing now is that true, right? Is it true that you can't do this? Is it true that people who come from where you come from only do this? Is it true, right? Is it true? Challenge everything.
That is so powerful. And I love that you're helping people do this deeper work. I want to swing it back to those questions you ask yourself when you're struggling to get visible. We talked about minimum viable, right? We talked about finding inspiration in others. What are a couple of those other things? What's the question you ask around self-concept to kind of trigger you into remembering that you've created your own construct?
Is it true is a big one. And specifically when it applies to video, is it true that you're being judged? Is it true that you can't do this? Is it true that you can't figure out this tech? Because tech is a huge false self-concept, right? A lot of us think, I'm not a tech person. And once you make that, right, the power of the I am, once you decide, or the I am not, right? Once you decide that you are not a tech person, it's like, boom, the door is shut. Is it true that you're not a tech person? Right? Probably not. So I definitely ask myself, when any of those little niggling things come up, is it true? And then, like I said, I literally remind myself of people that I love who are doing this thing without all the stuff that I have decided is absolutely required, right? Where do we get this from? Why did I decide that it's required that I have a full face of makeup? I mean, I don't wear makeup in real life, but there was a time when I was trying to show up on video with a full face of makeup. It was absurd. It would take me an hour and a half to get this makeup on. It would be all over my shirt. I mean, it was just a mess, right?
And nobody else cares, right? Nobody else is concerned about how you look. They're there for the message, right? They're there for the information.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I literally think of people who do it in a sort of a minimal way that I love and trust and respect and would never judge. Another thing that I do is when I'm afraid that someone is going to judge it, I ask myself, and I'm sure that people have talked about this and thought about this, and I know that this is a part of your work. I ask myself, well, who am I afraid is going to judge it? Literally, a name. Name a person. Not they, not the them. Who? Name a person. And if you can name a person, and 95% of people really can't name a person, but if there is a person, the next question is that person's opinion more important than the thing that I'm feeling called to do? And the answer every single time is no. But there is no person that exists that gets to strip me of answering the call on my life. And that right there changes everything.
Yeah. And the fact is, if they are judging it, it's not for them. Yeah. Right? It's for someone else. Yeah. So that message is still important to get out there, regardless of whether or not that one person you think is going to judge you actually does judge you. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And that old saying that the people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter, right? So if you do come up with that one person who really minds how you're showing up, you're right, that person doesn't matter, because all the people who matter, they don't mind. They're exactly like you said, they're coming for the message.
I love it. You have developed an entire toolkit of amazing questions to ask yourself to get yourself beyond the hesitation, to get yourself actually on camera. And I absolutely love that you've shared it here today. And before I let you go, I want people to understand what's on the other side. What has it meant for your business now that you have these tools and you're able to show up?
So the first, well, not only can I get more content out, not only can I create more modules for my programs, but I'm happier. I don't dread it. I made the mistake one time of committing to a weekly Facebook Live show. And literally for the whole 24 hours before the show, it was like dread. I was nuts. It was horrible. And the problem wasn't the show. The problem was what I thought I had to do to get ready for the show. And I would show up and I was so stiff and it wasn't any fun. And I would literally lose 2 days out of my week, one day gearing up for this show. And then I would do the show and I'd spend the rest of the day sort of vegging out and celebrating. It was absurd. Once I got past it, it became fun 7 days a week to do this thing. My audience gets to know me better. I get to just talk off the top of my head and from my heart about topics. I mean, it's just, everything is better. Everything is better.
I love it. I love it so much. This is resonating with me so much because it's so similar to what I'm teaching people in my video marketing confidence and mastery program, where it really is letting go of the expectations around showing up for your business, letting go of these ideas that there are other people out there that are you're allowing them to get in your way, and exploring this concept of self-concept, I think, is such a powerful tool. And so I'm really excited that you're sharing that with us today, and that you've shared your tools in your toolbox to, get enough confidence to just hit record. So thank you so much, Cori, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Valerie. This has been great. And I hope your audience finds something helpful. And I love the work that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Cori. Thank you so much. I will put links to Cori's Self-Concept RX in the description. I'll also pop a link in for you to grab your video marketing mapping session. This is a free 30-minute session where we can talk about what it looks like to use video for your business. That is something that precedes being invited to my video marketing confidence and mastery course. So grab that free spot and let's talk about how we can get you out there using video. Because you have to remember that you got into business to help someone solve a problem. And you can't do that if you stay hidden. So show up for them, show up for your business, and show up for yourself. We'll see you next time.